Winter weather is expected in the forecast next week, as a big dip in the jet stream allows temperatures to dip well below average for a good portion of the eastern U.S., allowing for a few storm systems to potentially produce snow for the first time this season. I'm meteorologist AJ Waterman. Let's talk more about this winter weather expected in the forecast. So currently it's Thursday, November 6th, and the cold air is situated in parts of southern Canada. There's even some of it in New England and also over some of the Rockies where there's been some fresh snowfall, but no indication of a winter pattern quite yet. But once the jet stream dips and that cold air comes in out of southern Canada, things are going to change. Right now we have this large weather system moving into the northwest that will be causing some impacts for the next few days. And as the system moves in, you can see the heavy rain and snow for parts of the northwest, and even strong gusty winds, upwards of 50 miles an hour in some locations. Once the storm system heads across the country, though, it does have a chance to produce snow for other areas as the cold air moves in from Canada. For now, it will produce at least an inch of rain across a good portion of the northwest, and even significant snow for the Cascades and even parts of Idaho going into Montana and Wyoming. But once that storm system heads on the other side of the Rockies, it has a chance to produce snow across the Midwest going into the Northeast and especially through southern Canada as that cold air moves south and the storm system moves east right along that boundary of colder air. There will also be a secondary system behind it that could produce even more snow for parts of the Northeast. And as you see the jet stream over the next few days dipping way to the south behind that weather system, there'll be some significant cold air that gets wrapped behind that system going all the way down into the southeast. This is all part of a larger pattern shift that will bring some significant cold air to the eastern U.S. Just take a look at these temperatures early Monday morning. So this is the start of next week. In the northern plains, down into the teens, really cold stuff. Not completely unusual for that part of the world, but definitely a bit early to see temperatures this cold. And then going down to the southeast, where we could see temperatures dip into the 20s for parts of northern Alabama, and a large swath of 20s going through the Midwest up into the northeast. And it gets even colder on Tuesday. Just look at Tuesday morning's forecast, where we have temperatures down into the 20s for Jackson, Mississippi, Montgomery, Alabama, and even down to 43 in Tampa, Florida, well below average low temperatures. And then into the northeast, we'll see temperatures finally get into the 20s and 30s there. Not completely unusual to get conditions that cold there, but we'll see below average temperatures even through the northeast and stretching all the way back to the Midwest as the cold air settles in. And this is how much colder than average things could be Tuesday morning, dipping as cold as 20 degrees below the average low temperatures. So this is some significant cold air across the eastern half of the U.S. However, you go west of Texas and west of the plains in general, well above average temperatures for a good portion of the Rockies and West Coast. But there will certainly be enough cold air for that storm system from the West Coast to produce snow across parts of the Midwest going into parts of the Northeast. And there'll be a secondary system that actually forms behind that on the cold front that passes by and could produce even more snow for parts of New York and New England. And we could see a few more clipper systems behind this as the cold air settles in. So it looks like this will be the start of winter for parts of the U.S., but I do think this will still be concentrated towards the extreme northern part of the U.S. and northeast part of the U.S. So it's not a widespread chance or a big start of winter weather, but it is a taste of the winter season that's ahead. So here's a look at the snowfall forecast from that system that'll be working from the west coast across the Midwest into the Northeast. In addition to the one that'll develop on the cold front, we'll see a little bit of snow. It's not a lot, but I do think we'll see a little bit of snow across the Midwest going into northern New York and northern New England at this point. There may be some changes to this forecast, but I don't think there'll be major changes. But even as far south as West Virginia could see a little bit of snow as well as the cold air surges in behind this system. There'll be some upslope snow that actually gets into those locations as well. So there'll be several locations that get the first snow of the season. But if you live on the southern side of the Great Lakes, I do think there's a high certainty of seeing some snowfall. So this includes a good portion of the state of Michigan along the lakeshore, going into Ohio, even Indiana, and especially through New York State as that cold air starts to surge in over the warmer Great Lakes. There will be some snow that gets produced across a good portion of this region into early next week. But behind the couple of weather systems that we'll have, we could see a few more clipper systems coming out of southern Canada. This is pretty typical when we see some big cold surges like this. So you can see going into the 15th and 16th and even 17th, we could see a couple more systems move through. Clipper systems are very light. They don't produce a lot of snow, but I do think we could see flakes fly in places like Pennsylvania, going into Maryland, even New York City, parts of southern New England. As we push into the end of next week and into the weekend, it won't be a lot of snow. It might not even accumulate, but we could see the flakes fly and starting to see some signs of winter out there. But the cold air will stay on the East Coast at least through the middle of the month until the pattern shifts all the way out there even, where we'll see above average temperatures back in the forecast. As we go all the way out to the 20th, you can see the above average temperatures make their way through the plains, the Midwest, and even all the way out to the East Coast. This will continue to push eastward through the end of the month before we start to see another pattern shift going into early December, and that could bring significant snow chances back into the forecast. So as we compare the forecast to the winter outlook as we head through next week, I do think we'll see a taste of that winter pattern in the forecast as we have colder than average temperatures across a good portion of the East Coast, but specifically through the Midwest is where I think the cold air is going to be hanging out most of the season, where across the South we'll still see some chances of warm weather in the forecast from time to time, but this is a good example, I think, in early next week of what we could see for the potential winter season ahead. And currently we are in a La Nina pattern, and that's why we have the colder than normal temperatures across a good portion of the eastern U.S., but going up into the Midwest and plains. This will be more drawn out once we hit ENSO neutral towards the middle part of the winter, but we will continue to see some colder outbreaks, I think, from time to time as we start to push into the winter season. And in terms of the storm setup, we're already seeing some of those clipper systems work their way into the forecast. No robust coastal system quite yet that has dealt with the cold air. We did have one that was a rainstorm across New England not too long ago, but I do think we'll continue to see more clipper systems, and then eventually the coastal storms develop as we get closer to the start of winter. So looking ahead, we'll be tracking that cold stretch of weather into early next week and the snow chances that come along with it. Eventually, we'll see a pattern change, and the warmer than average conditions will work from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast going towards the end of the month as the pattern flips around, and I'll have a winter update as we get closer to the start of the season as we start to see better signals on what to expect for the upcoming winter. So if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out more of our videos here, and I'll see you in the next forecast update.